Hey everyone, welcome again. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Kuldeep Singh and I'll be your host today for Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations Mobile Apps Development. This is going to be a 45 minutes webinar and I welcome you all joining us from just the different distribution channels, whether it's Zoom meetings, Microsoft Team live events, or any RTMP publishing services. So thank you very much for joining us today. Let's get started with today's webinar. So today we would be discussing on Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations mobile apps. Without further ado, let's quickly do that. And before we do, you can always subscribe us from all these different media channels. You can go for youtube.com channels, GTechLearn VOD, that is video on demand. You can subscribe us from facebook.com/GTechLearn for all the upcoming latest updates. You can subscribe us on LinkedIn as well, linkedin.com/company/GTechLearn, and have our regular updates and follow us so you don't miss any future notifications on the same. So today's webinar is focused on Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations mobile apps. We would be having a quick overview, top level concepts, the different elements of our D365 mobile apps, followed by a quick hands-on demonstration, and then if time permits, we'll be having a couple of question and answers down there. So let's get started. When we talk about Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations, it's really important for any business application today to support mobile apps so users can follow the streamlined business processes right from their mobile devices, be it a tablet user or any mobile user, irrespective of any platform or OS level details down there. So the mobile apps enables your organization to make its business processes available on mobile devices, whether it is your end users, whether it is your power users, whether it's your key decision makers. Depending on their roles, you can pretty much start assigning mobile apps availability to them. And at the same point of time, after your IT administrator enables the mobile workspaces, we will be discussing about mobile workspaces a little bit in this presentation today. Once being an IT admin or once being a system admin of finance and operations, once you enable those mobile applications after publishing, users can sign in to the app and immediately begin to run business processes from their mobile devices. And that's as simple as it can be. So doesn't really matter whether it's finance and operations or business central or customer engagement. Microsoft does have mobile applications available for all these Dynamics product line, including Android marketplace, including Apple iOS and in Windows 10 devices down there. So at the same point of time, let's talk about specifically to finance and operations, how exactly the mobile apps works as far as the elements of the mobile applications are concerned. So we'll be discussing all these things. We'll be seeing them practically down there, but you have your application menu, which is pretty much once you click on the breadcrumb icon, you do open this particular area where the current logged in user displays, followed by some of the areas, some of the menu items available down there. At the same point of time, I do have the application dashboard. Depending on when I'm signing in and what my security roles are, the apps will be available to me. The mobile apps will be available to me. That's my application dashboard, displaying me all these different apps available in D365 Finance and Operations. At the same point of time, we've got another top level concept talking about a workspace. So it shows the list of a workspace. For example, I've got a time management app down there. You can have your project, you can have your view time weekly, daily, review those times. So respective lists down there, all those workspaces which would be available in a mobile apps, we'll be discussing them in there. Let's talk about a list page. Well, as the name suggests, whenever we have the list page available, the data will be available as list associations down there. You can have a detail page as well, where the data is available in form of a card right across in there. You can have your page level actions. In terms of you want to create a new record of that particular entity, you might want to edit an existing record, you might want to perform any kind of approval, you might want to run any kind of reports down there. You can pretty much have your task page which will allow you to perform any kind of CRUD operations down there. So these are some of the top level concepts which talks about the basic elements of a mobile application down there. Having said that, when we talk about the mobile workspaces, what are the different mobile workspaces available in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations specifically? We've got plenty of them. Let's discuss them one by one. I've got my company directory. Well, as the name suggests, will list me all the employees available and the contractors available as part of the company directory down there. Let's talk about my team. It'll give me the information of my own along with my team to whom I'm reporting, the people which reports to me, and the team hierarchy down there. When we talk about invoice approval, the invoice approval mobile app workspace talks about the different AP invoices which can go for approval, and you can pretty much do it by the flexibility of controlling that from your mobile device. At the same point of time, we've got expense management related to your expense entries, uploading your expense receipts right from there, including the photographs and all, and that can straightforward go to your manager or any kind of approval workflow which comes in thereafter. We've got a purchase order approval mobile app workspace, as the name suggests, used for PO approvals. I've got my project time entry, pretty much important for submitting the timesheets in finance and operations down there. We can have our cost controlling, which enables the managers to see the cost center details down there, the cost center monitoring workspace down there. At the same time, we have the inventory on hand, really helpful for our picking and packing department, our warehouse workers. We pretty much can have inventory on hand, or any kind of a stakeholder which would like to have access to inventory on hand real quick on the availability of their mobile device. At the same time, I've got the mobile app workspace related to sales orders. I've got my vendor collaborations, the vendor details coming up in there. I've got my assets management where we can start working on the work orders, preventive assets management, enterprise assets management, EAM down there. So these are the different available workspaces which are already available in your Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. Now, when I say these are available, are they readily available to the users? Well, that depends. That depends whether these workspaces are published or not. So being an IT admin, I can publish any workspace, and depending on the security roles, they'll be available to the users just right after that. So let's talk about a couple of demonstration where we would be discussing about creating a mobile app down there, publishing a mobile app down there, and testing the mobile app right across thereafter. So let's start working step by step in here. I'm taking you to my demo environment here. So there I am. Let me quickly start a session. So currently I'm on a cloud hosted environment down there where I have the simple data uploaded in front of me. And you can see that I've got my finance and operations. And just to let you know, currently I'm logged in as myself, and I'm acting as the admin to this particular machine, the admin user provisioning, and I do have a system administrator security role associated to me. Well, we would like to start working with the mobile apps development, but before we do, let me show you something, the one which we were discussing in our presentation. What are the available workspaces? So for that, I'm clicking on this settings icon. So when I'm clicking on that settings icon right across, you can see I've got 4 different options down there. I've got the user options, I've got my task recorder, I've got my mobile app, I've got my personalization menu down there. The one which I'm currently interested is clicking on the mobile app available in here. So let me click on the mobile app down there. That pretty much brings me the area where it will show me all the available mobile workspaces. Now, this is what we were discussing on the PowerPoint presentation, whether it's my team, company directory, cost control, inventory on hand, expense management, invoice approval, so on and so forth. You can see all these workspaces available in here. Important thing to notice, currently that will decide that whether they are published or not. So you can see that these are not published right now. So what kind of impact does it place to the end users down there? So let's quickly have a very small demonstration down there. So on that particular area, I would like to go to my mobile device and start working on this particular browser experience. I don't have any of those workspaces published as of now. So what I'm gonna do is, let me quickly share my screen, my mobile screen right across in here. Let me quickly do that. And presently, if I talk about what I'm actually doing, I'm currently sharing my mobile device screen right across in there. So let's quickly do that. Let's take a look. How does it work? How do we start utilizing that? And how do we start working with that particular approach? So I'm on my mobile device right now. Important thing, it is an Android device. So if I click on the Play Store and you talk about finance and operations mobile application, so when you click on finance and operations mobile app, you will see that I've already got that installed and I can always open it. Being an end user, this is how the experience of the end user is going to be. It is asking me to provide the environments. So you can see that is currently giving me the recent environments where I was already logging in. Well, in spite of these two, I'm using a different environment today. So for that, I'm going to put that particular URL over here. Let me quickly do that. So this is the URL, my demo environment, which I'm currently working on. Let me click on connect. This is a cloud hosted environment. And this is, I'm talking about a very first time experience of the Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations mobile app. Let me click on I understand and clicking on connect. Of course, it is going to ask me for the Azure AD login. Let me log in with my credentials, the one which I was using. And I'm going to specify the password here altogether. So let me quickly have that listed quickly right across in there. And that's going to be whatever I'm specifying. I'm clicking on sign in. I'm sorry. So let me quickly have that. Just want to make sure I'm keying in that correctly. Right, there I am, and my MFA is enabled, so it is sending me the multi-factor authentication. And let me quickly log in. And I'm gonna say yes. So it is currently logging me into that particular mobile application workspace. And you can see that I do not have any workspaces. There can be multiple reasons behind that. One of them could be I'm not an active user. What does it mean? I don't have appropriate permissions, but in this case, I am. I, in fact, am a system administrator. The second possible reason is the mobile app or the workspace you're talking about is not currently published. So let me click on that breadcrumb icon and you see that I'm going to see the admin with my logged in user ID, the URL of the environment, USMF being my current company, workspaces, notification, about, change company, sign out. I'm seeing that particular menu right across in here. The second area is for workspaces. Once it's enabled, all you need to do is just swipe it down and it should be available right across in there. But at present, that's not currently available. So let me quickly go back in there and I'm going to share my screen right across. So let me share my screen in here and I'm back to my D365 demo environment. So one of the reasons why the mobile app workspaces are not available because they are not published right from here. So let's say on my team, I'm publishing this and it tells me that it has successfully been published. I'm seeing one notification here. Let me go down to inventory on hand and I'm going to publish that as well. And I'm going to have a third one, which would be talking about my sales orders, and I'm going to publish that as well. So let me quickly publish these three different workspaces right across in there. Next thing I'm going to do is let me quickly test that functionality back on my mobile app right across. So let me have my screen shared real quick from my mobile device. I'm just going to do that. Let me do it right across. And that will start sharing my screen in here. And now let me go back to this finance and operations workspace. All you're going to do is sometimes you might need to sign out and sign in, or you just swipe it right across in there. You would like to see the mobile workspaces associated with that. You just scroll it down, or you can always sign out and sign back in to refresh all those changes. So important thing to note is if they're not visible to you, either you don't have the security privileges with you, or you do not have the appropriate workspaces published from your application down there. So let me quickly have that typed in down there. I'm just gonna do that. Will be sending me my multi-factor authentication. I rather disable that. So let me just have it. And don't ask me for next 14 days. Let me say yes. And there I am, and that's fine. It is asking me please log out and log in again with valid credentials. That's not a problem. They'll be available right across when the workspaces will be available. All I'm gonna do is just swipe it down to refresh those changes right across. So that's fine, should be available. I've just published it available over there. Let me just have it. It's loading in. All right, something with my MFA credentials. That's not a problem. I'll come back and then we'll start verifying that particular application right across in there. So at present, there was one thing what I currently have, and it talks about testing that up. That'll be available when I pass in the credentials in there. I'll quickly verify and jump to that particular area. In the meanwhile, if I come back over here, so this is the workspace. This is the area where we actually create our mobile apps available, which we can always have on our mobile apps and then get those workspaces loaded down there. Next in the segment, what we should be talking about is start working on creating a new mobile app if it's required. So how do we do that? How do we start working with the creation of the mobile apps? So let's go ahead. I would like to create a new mobile application for Dynamics 365. So let me click on create after I click on that ellipsis icon. That will take me to the mobile apps creation page, and now it's going to be important what we would like to have in there. So presently, let me just name it. For example, I would like to see my vendors over here. Vendors list, for example. This is what I would like to call it. Vendors list GTL, whatever I would like to name it. We need to specify the workspace color. Let me just have it and specify that as black in there. What's going to be the workspace icon? So I've got multiple icons available and associated in here. You can pretty much use the whatever you want as part of availabilities down there. So at present, let's say I'm just saying none at present, or admin, or whatever icon you would like to have for the workspace. Next in the segment is I've got my pages, I've got my actions, I've got my logic. So this is something which we would be discussing right now. I'm going to specify create a small page over here. So when I say add a page, it would be asking me what is going to be the name available in there. So let me call it vendors list, and I would like to call it list of vendors, for example. Let me say done, and I just created a page. The next area where I'm in, it is talking me for build a page. I've got the fields and I've got the action. So this is where we need to be careful. We need to be really careful about what we select down there. So before I click on select field, it is really important that you navigate to that particular entity which you would like to include as part of your mobile page of what you just created. So it's really important that you do not click the select fields icon from there unless you're on the designated entity. So let me just go in there. So for this one, I'm gonna move to my accounts payable. Let me quickly have it up in here. And in the list of modules, I'm moving to my procurement and sourcing, or I'm moving to my accounts payable. The purpose of that is to go to my all vendors list page. So let me go to my vendors, and I'm clicking on all vendors available on accounts payables, procurement and sourcing. So let me just have it available in here. it is going to go and then open the vendors page for me, and that's the area where I would be selecting the fields and adding and associating them to this particular mobile app right across in there. So let me just move in there. It is loading up right across, and we'll start adding those particular fields what we would like to include. So now is the point that I am on this particular area. So let me explain you the fields and let me explain you the actions. All these fields which you're seeing on the grid, I can always add them to the available fields right across in here. And all these actions which are available on the ribbon on the top over here, if you would like to perform that and make it as a legal action down there to your mobile page what you're developing, that will be available into the actions list down there. You can have the logics implemented and pretty much multiple things down there. So let me click on select fields now. The moment you do that, you will notice a slight change on the user interface. On all available fields, there is an orange plus icon, gives you what you would like to add. Well, I would like to add my vendor account. So let me click on that plus. So it is a grid. My vendor account has been added. Let me add the vendor name. The third number is going to be my vendor group. And then I'm going to have my vendor phone number. I'm not going to have the currency, phone, or multiple details, vendor on hold or extension or anything else. Well, this is what I would like to have these 4 flat fields down there. Do you want to capture any actions? You can always go and have that actions performed. But at present, as part of this demonstration, let me just make and build this page right across. I'm clicking on done. And when I do so, that orange area reflecting to all these fields is gone. So these are the 4 fields which will be available on this vendors list page. I'm just adding that as part of my D365 Finance and Operations mobile app. Let me go back. So that's one page which I created. Can I have multiple pages here? Purchase orders, purchase requisitions, vendor invoices. Why not? You can always have it and name it like a vendor management workspace and then have the designated access down there. We can always have it. We can have multiple pages right across from there. We can have the page level actions from here. We can have different logics available and then have that implemented down from there. Well, at present, all I'm just doing is I've just created this vendors list page and I'm clicking on done. All right. So important thing before I save and then we publish and then we do multiple changes down there. This is my application ID. This is my mobile app ID, which would be available as part of an XML file as well. We will be discussing that later after this demonstration. I'm going to do next and I'm going to click on save. Let me just do that. So you will notice I'm going to have one application down there, which would be my vendors list. So that was the icon, the admin icon I associated. Black was the color I chosen for the workspace. Vendors list, and you can see that it is vendors list -GTL. And once I select it, I'm clicking on publish. So technically, I am publishing this particular workspace. So you can see these options coming up and talking about the publish is successful. We can always test it up and start working with the testing as part of an emulator, as part of a real device or whatsoever. But it is important to understand that option 1, from where can you create a mobile app? It's right from here. You go to the settings area, you click on mobile app. On the ellipsis icon, you click on create. You can add pages, actions, logic right across and have those fields added. Then once you create it and once you save it, by default, it won't be published and it won't be available to the end users unless you select your mobile workspace and you click on publish right across, which will publish your D365 mobile workspace down there. You can export your app at any given point of time. So let's say this is the one which I created, the vendors list. Not ideally for the functional people out there, but for the technical audience, when you click on export, that's going to give me the XML file underneath that, talking about all those pages and multiple areas associated with that. So let me quickly open that and let me explain you what that contains. Well, this is a standard XML. I've just done an application export. English US is the color, the language. Color 14, black is the color name. This was the name and the description. The icon was for system admin, and this was the ID, the global unique identifier. Once we created and saved that app, that's what it was automatically generated as part of that. I've got a master data entity for vendor table. The rec ID is going to be the prefix. I'm reading those records. I'm getting those fields added. So that's going to be a account number. That's going to be a name of that particular vendor. That's going to be the vendor group. And the fourth one's going to be my phone number locator for that particular user down there. So I've just applied all those values down here, and you can see all these values available as part of your XML file. You can always export, and your developers can later import that, make some changes, and you can pretty much import it from there as well. So if an application was successfully created onto the dev and it needs to be transferred to the test or UAT or a pre-production or a staging environment to be tested, well, instead of recreating that, it might have multiple pages, logics and actions. All you're going to do is export it as an XML file, and in the target environment, just import it back. So it'll have the same functionalities without rewriting or recreating the whole app again into the different environment down there. So that was one quick example which was talking about how can we have our different applications starting working up, and how can we start working with our mobile applications associated. Before I go next in there, if I take you back to my PowerPoint presentation over here, we were discussing a couple of things in some of our previous slides down there, and that was the slide which we were talking about discussing all these options associated. So how does that actually work? Let me quickly revisit that particular area and have that demonstrated again. How can we start utilizing all those values? So let me clear this particular screen and have that drawings cleared right from there. So let me quickly have all that, and now let's discuss that. So the very first thing what we were doing once we launch a D365 mobile app, we can always have the hamburger menu icon and can see the current logged in user and all these menu items. That is my app menu. Now you would understand because we've already created an application down there. So you have the app dashboard. When I talk about an application dashboard, so multiple mobile apps can be available in there. We already know what are the different mobile apps which are available as part of that, and we can always get them logged in and then get them subscribed just by publishing it from the portal. The next in the segment is you do have the list of your workspaces. That will show you the list of the workspace and pretty much all the forms and all these values underneath them. The form, the page which you're talking about, can either be a list page, just the way we just added. It could be a details page. Now, how can it be a details page and start utilizing all those values in there? So let me take you back in there. And that was my vendors list. Let me unpublish it first. And I'm going to make some changes to that. So let me go to my vendors list. I'm going to click on edit. And you can see I've got one page listed here. Next in the segment is I would like to see one more page, and I would like to call it my vendor details. All right. So let's call it my details page, for example. And I'm just making it as done. So I just created that particular page. This time, whether it's going to be a list page or a details page or a details from master or a details from transaction, whatsoever the template we are using in here depends on which particular menu item we are in. For example, if I'm on my all vendors page, this is a grid. And if I'll start adding fields from here, it will become a list page. Versus, what if I select any of that vendor right from there and I click on edit? That will take me to a different menu item altogether, a different details page across in there. And once I'm in there, so let me quickly go in on Fabricam Electronics, and I'm gonna open that details page first. So now you can see that I'm on a details page, which gives me all these fields, which gives me contact information, multiple fast tabs, multiple informations, and all those values right associated in there. Now, how does that work? So let's take an example. Now if I click on select fields, I'm on a details page in the application, and what fields you'd like to add. So I would like to contain the one which is in the header. Okay, I would like to have my vendor identification. I'm gonna have the name of the vendor. I'm gonna have the group of the vendor. This is not inside a grid, just to tell you, this is a details page. Then I'm gonna have my payment related details. So let me just scroll it down and let me go to my payment fast tab. I would like to see my terms of payment. I would like to see the method of payments associated with the vendor. And of course, I would like to go on if there is any cash discount applicable. If I'm inside the US, 1099 IRS reporting is required. I can specify 1099 details, whether W-9 is received or not, and what's the federal tax ID. So I've added all these fields associated in here. Let me click on done over here. And then I'm gonna go back and let me just have it and click on done over there. So one quick thing I want to talk about is once you create this particular page, so let me just click and would like to replace the existing one, and we can always publish it. So important thing to note is whether it is going to be a list page or whether it's going to be a details page doesn't really depends on the mobile app you're deploying. It really depends on once you select on add fields over there, which workspace or which main entity you're in. Are you on vendor table grid or are you on a vendor table details form? Accordingly, the page is going to be processed in there. You can have your actions and multiple menus thereafter when we talk about all these options down there. So one quick thing which we want to talk about is when we have the mobile apps available, and we can always start working with all these options associated where we can have all these menus available. We can create a mobile application, we can publish a mobile application, and once these two tasks are done, you can download that D365 Finance and Operations app and test it wherever you want. For developer testing, you can do it in an emulator or real world. You can always download the app from the respective Android marketplace or iOS store and start testing that up. Well, that was one thing what we had as part of this particular demonstration and this particular webinar, which was originally talking about how can we start working with Dynamics 365 mobile apps, creating a new mobile app, understanding the workspaces, making them published from there. If you want, you can export them as XML, import them into your target environment. You publish them, you can test them onto your mobile devices. So at any, that was the planned schedule what we had as part of this particular webinar. Now, for future references, you can always browse us to GTechLearn.com and click on events. That will take you to the upcoming events which are going to be available on Dynamics 365, Finance and Operations, Customer Engagement, Business Central, and Microsoft Azure all the way down. You can always register yourself on those no-cost upcoming events down there. Well, the recording of this particular session is going to be made available on our YouTube channel. You can always go in there, like, share, subscribe, whatever you want in there. Thanks for attending this particular webinar now. So now I'm going to open the questions panel, open the chat in here just to answer if you got some questions to ask in there, and let's see if we can answer some questions here. So let's have your questions on the chat from all distributing channels. All right, we got a question in here. Is that the mobile apps functionality only available on a specific version? Not really. If you're on build 16.11, later than that, it's by default natively available. Before build 16.11, you'll have to put a /m, a \m on the address bar to be able to access the mobile based experience. Another question coming up, can we publish a mobile app in multiple environments? Answer is yes. Just export it as XML and import it into your target environments. What if the versions are different? So I can assure you one thing, when Microsoft moved to version 1, that's pretty much the build 10 down there. After that, is it 10.05, 10.06, 10.010, 10.012, whatsoever the available version is, you can always publish that. The backward compatibility is already available, provided provided you're not trying to do it from version 10 to 7 point something down there. Another question coming up, do you need to add that application on AAD first? Well, that's a question which comes up multiple times in there, where you need to log into your Azure portal. You need to create an enterprise application down there, align the permissions and start working. Well, that's not true in here. We always do it once when you deploy on-prem environments to make that AAD integration available within your D365. After that, not really. You don't need to create any enterprise applications on Azure and have those permissions. You just go to your portal, create it and start working right across in there. At the same point of time in there, when you talk about, there is another question coming up. How can you have multiple mobile applications and multiple environments available to users? Well, on the mobile app development, when you create a mobile app right across in here in finance and operations, we don't talk about who would be having access to that, because the authentication is taken care by Azure AD and the authorization is completely taken care by security roles. If your security role doesn't allow you to see or perform some specific actions, you won't be able to do that right across in there. Right, let's have some more questions coming up in here. Another question coming up in here, guys, can we use mobile application in production environment to create sales order, purchase orders and all? Well, the answer is absolutely yes, you can. So the important thing to notice here, guys, all these apps, irrespective of whether it's your dev environment, test or UAT or production, you can always use them provided there is a valid business use case. For example, one of our clients was having a purchase requisition functionality and they would like to have a purchase requisition approval. So there is no mobile workspace available for PR approval. There is one for purchase order approval, but there is nothing for purchase requisition. So we created that up, added those actions. People do those approvals on the mobile devices and work. Would you essentially be creating purchase orders right from there? Absolutely you can. Depending on the case studies, you can always make them available. Okay, another question coming up, licensing in here, guys. Do we require a separate license for Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations mobile app? No, that is already part of your base user license, the subscription access license. Depending on whether you are an operations user, whether you are an activity user, whether you are a Teams user, where you talk about the licensing availability, it is already available. You don't require any separate license to use that into the mobile apps. That's already part of your subscription access license. Perfect. Another question, a little bit outside the scope in here. Can we have any upcoming session on RSET? I would love to, and we are pretty much working on that. In the next couple of weeks, you should be seeing the automated testing, the RSET tool session coming up with Azure DevOps and D365 Finance and Operations. So pretty much the team will keep you posted on that. All right, great. So that was what we had as part of this particular webinar, guys. It was really nice having you all understanding how the mobile applications works in finance and operations. How can we create a new mobile app and start working? So keep following us on the social media channels. Do subscribe us on the YouTube video. The recordings of this session will be made available in there. And thank you very much for joining us. I should see you in the next upcoming sessions. Till time, bye-bye, take care. See you soon.